Howdy, everybody, and welcome back to Retro Repair Roundup for this wonderful 6th of October, 2024. We are back after a couple-week hiatus. Of course, we were off last week because we only do this twice a month. And sometimes we need the extra time off, especially in my case because I'm insane. Anyway, we are joined tonight, of course, by our wonderful viewers. We got tons of people in the chat hanging out with us tonight. Let's run down the list. We got Thomas Armstrong, Eric's Edge, Frank S., Dave's Vintage Apple Tech. He was streaming all day today. 80386SX. We've got Josh Malone. Hey, Josh. Francois. Cat's here. Hi, Garth. Who else? Scarlett's here. Francois, unless I already did Francois. Mike's Future Retro, other people, Bob Darlington, hey Bob, and others. And if I missed you, I am sorry. But Mike Smash, Curtis Boyle, Mac Geek, and Scott. Yes, everybody's here. So thank you all tonight for stopping in and deciding to spend a little bit of time with us this evening. Remember, hit the like button, do the subscribe, all of that silly stuff. So let's introduce our wonderful guest, Cara. Who is a retro computing and retro video enthusiast who makes retro computer art in a fashion. Hi, Cara. How you doing this evening?
Hey, doing pretty good. It's good to be here.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. So why don't you introduce yourself to everybody out there and kind of tell us what your milieu is.
Sure.
That is a dumb word. Anyway, go ahead.
No, absolutely. I would say, hi, I'm Cara. Cara Esten. I do a bit of computing preservation, a bit of just retro computing hobbyism, but I also kind of primarily do a lot of art involving analog video and old computers. So that's kind of the background. Like, a lot of stuff with, some of it with, old Apple IIs, a lot of it with, old Macintoshes, and often messing around with camcorders and like that kind of stuff.
Apple II, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's my favorite. Right next to me, you can't see it, it's slightly off camera, but I have a 2GS that I'm working through, trying to get all ready.
I saw the photo on Blue Sky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a acquaintance online had one from family estate and didn't really know what to do with it. There's actually a couple of them, so I'm going through and repairing a busted power supply. I was actually working on one the other day, and as I was working on it and trying to see what worked and what didn't, one of the reefa capacitors in the power supply blew on me as I was working on it. Originally, I was like, well, one has a good power supply, yes. One's got a bad one. I'm like, I have 2 bad power supplies now.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah.
Yes. A stereo board, yeah.
Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah.
The best ones.
Very cool. Well, we'll just kind of start the interview in earnest. Thank you again, Cara, for taking time out of your evening and coming here to let us grill you on some of the cool projects and stuff that you've been working on. I promise it'll be friendly. So
yeah, happy to be here.
But when did you get started in retro computing?
Yeah, that's actually, it's sort of an interesting question because I think I've been doing retro computing in some sense or another my entire life. So back when I was in school, I was in a before and after school program because both of my parents worked, and we would get all the surplus machines from like the rest of the elementary school. So, I would spend a bunch of time after school playing around with Apple IIe. And, I would get my dad's hand-me-down computers from his work, work through all that kind of stuff. And I kind of always had this sort of like affinity for, older computers or like sort of more forgotten stuff that was not quite top of the line. A lot of it was just because it's like, yeah, that's what I have around. That's what I can deal with. Like if you're getting hand-me-downs, like you have, some nostalgia and like affinity for that kind of thing. But then, yeah, when pandemic hit, I kind of started taking it a little bit more seriously. And I started, teaching myself how to repair them, how to work on them. I think at the time, I just had a bunch of projects built up and suddenly I had a bunch of free time. I think that's very relatable for everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And when you're sitting there and you're like, well, the world is shut down. There's nothing going on. And I have 3 totally non-working computers in various states of disrepair. You start to be like, oh, what can I do with this?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of how that's kind of an overview of how it started.
I know a lot of people. That's a kind of a common story in our hobby, of all the people that just during the pandemic were like, I've got all this time on my hands, and because you couldn't go out and do other things, a lot of disposable income. So maybe this is the time to kind of scratch that itch on fixing up that old computer, whatever. So it's really good to hear that you were able to kind of turn a negative into kind of a positive, like so many people in the hobby did.
Yeah, well, it's so funny because like even back then, like, you know, before the pandemic, I was always sort of like vaguely interested in this kind of stuff. So people would just give me their old computers, or I would just recover them from the trash or flea markets or whatever. Actually, back when I worked at an office job back in 2014 or 2015, where at my desk I kept my 2C tethered to a serial connection on my laptop, so I'd be able to just like, people would walk by and you're like, what are you using that old computer for? And I'd be like, well, look, you can run.
It's not old.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, at the time I was working at Twitter, and like, you know, we would have like, I'd be like, look, I can read your Twitter feed on it, you know, and I would like pull up a command line Twitter client. It was really fun. So I kind of had like all this sort of affinity for stuff, and then just was kind of carrying around broken computers like a Katamari, because like I was already there, you know, as I'm sure we all do this now. And it's funny, I'm trying to get myself to do this less now, but like definitely when pandemic happened, it was a boon. So.
Well, there's a lot of people that say the right number of vintage computers to have in your collection is N+1.
Always, so I think that's what we keep telling ourselves. I don't know if that's necessarily true.
All I'm going to say is watch Mac 84, and he's the living example of that.
Run out of space?
Everywhere.
Get new space.
Yeah. Get more space, yes.
Get a garage.
Well, it's funny because I think my partner has always like been great about this kind of stuff, but I think it's definitely something where, you know, I'll have like a computer that kind of sits in a corner for a while and isn't really getting any use, and she'll be like, Cara, what do you plan to use that for? And unless I have a good answer, you know, it's a sign for me to maybe be like, oh, well, I should find a new home for this, and, you know, pass it on to somebody else who might be able to do something cool with it, or, you know, anything like that. So.
Remember where that potted plant leaked on the carpet? It's covering it up.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, if you want to look at the stain, that's fine, but that machine looks beautiful right there.
It's holding down the shelf along with all 20 of the other machines on the shelf. It's fine.
Right. That's what the G5s are for, actually. Like, you know, they all just like melt down, but they're like a really good building supply.
They're strong, yeah.
They make great coffee tables.
Yeah.
All right. So
sorry, go ahead, Trina.
No, go ahead. I was just going to ask the next question if you had something.
No, I was going to ask you to ask the next question.
Oh, okay then. I actually printed them out. Are you currently working on any retro computing projects? You just mentioned actually something you are working on.
Yeah, currently working through the 2GS. The 2GS is kind of a and kind of has been for at least the last couple of years, a sort of center point of my art setup. I do titling with a 2GS. I used to use my 2C with DazzleDraw, which is very common sort of drawing software. I think I'm using Platinum Paint now on my 2GS. I have something on my hard drive. I think it's Platinum Paint that I use most of the time. But like the general point of the 2GS is it's nice because you have the really crisp RGB output that you can use for, you know, laying stuff out and doing drawing, but you also have the simultaneous composite output, which makes it really useful for video art. So I usually take a video mixer, and either chroma or luma key out the background from the 2GS's composite, and then I can use it as a titler. It's like, you know, a budget Genlock. I mean, I also have an Amiga 500 with a Genlock, and like that's nice to use, but it's also like, for some reason, the Apple II, I guess I've just been using the Apple II since I was, you know, preteen. And so it's something that I've just kind of had around forever. So having an Apple II, you know, I've been working on a new one that's in slightly better shape than my kind of beat up one that I got from, does anybody know, sort of a weird thing, does anybody know the Black Hole of Los Alamos? Is that a familiar thing to anyone? Because it's a good story. I could tell you about it.
Yeah, please.
Tell us.
So this Apple II that I had originally came from a place called the Black Hole of Los Alamos, which is a surplus store in Los Alamos, New Mexico, that was used for nuclear program surplus initially. And so there's like detonator wire that they used in like the Trinity test that you could like buy at the store, like just surplus detonator wire. But it was run by it was run by a guy who was like a very anti-nuclear activist. Like he is basically dedicated his whole life to this, is kind of like finding like the detritus of this program that he just fundamentally thought was evil, and is sort of like making his life on sort of like reselling all of the crap that kind of comes out of it. Yeah. It's a really interesting place. It's closed now. I think it closed in 2009 or 2000.
I was going to ask if you tested for Geiger, Geiger shutter,
Well, I didn't, and I guess I'm just crossing my fingers. We'll see. Like,
if you blow at night, you will know.
20 years from now, I might end up being like, well, I've got horrible cancer, but I made some great video art, so maybe it's fine.
Cara, would you say that the deals at this place are not great, but not terrible? Sorry, that's...
Anyway.
Yes, everybody go watch Chernobyl on HBO after the show. Okay.
Five roachins of deals,
Right.
Our deals are off the charts.
Yeah. We can't even tell you how good our deals are.
Yeah.
They got glowing references.
Yeah, it's a cool place. So yeah, that's kind of like having the 2GS and having like one that's in a little bit better shape than that one that came from the nuclear scrap heap is it's nice to have that. The other stuff I've been working on is more in the video side of things, but I'm working right now on a project using a PVM 97, which is a black and white PVM that's like generally used for like security cameras and CCTV. To basically, it also takes external sync. So what you can do with it is you can pipe an RGB signal that's separated to RGB and sync, channel by channel, and then photograph each channel and stitch them together manually, channel by channel after the fact, and get a super, super sharp image because you don't have phosphors. You just have the individual scan lines. Mm-hmm. It's a really interesting sort of technique for getting like high resolution images. I'm working on a photography, sort of like a glitch art photography portrait series that's based around doing stuff with that. So that's kind of my main thing. It's not really like retro tech in the same way as like, it's not really a computer, but it's kind of adjacent to like a lot of this retro computing stuff.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Cool.
That's cool.
Click button.
I was not aware of that. This questions. This comes to the next question: is when did you first become interested in retro video projects?
Retro video is kind of more recent. There's a little store. I feel like a lot of like my explanations for things are I was at this really weird store, but there's a store in Berkeley called Urban Ore, which if you're from the Bay Area, you definitely know about Urban Ore. And I picked up a camcorder there. I think it was a Video 8 XR camcorder. And I started doing some work with that maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I was doing just little sort of composition. So I studied photojournalism in my undergraduate. So I've always been doing sort of art photography and like that kind of thing as a hobby for really my entire life. So yeah, I kind of like got into doing like video work and video composition through that fairly recently. And then just kind of like immersing myself in like the history of this, like there is this kind of like relatively like rich tradition of like, doing video art and analog video specifically, kind of messing with analog video, seeing what you can get out of just like distorting composite signals, that kind of thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
It seems kind of like we're in the music scene, like Chipmen, sort of, in a way.
Yeah, it's exactly
that's maybe not
the
the
same
best
thing. Yeah.
But
No, that's exactly it. It's circuit bending, right? So basically, what you would do with like an old like Casio little keyboard, right? Like where you would kind of get some weird sounds out of it by like, joining different sort of circuits together. You do the same thing with video. So I have little video processor that a friend rescued from me from e-waste for me, and I took it apart and just took an alligator clip on one, random point on the circuit board where I was like, well, there's video signal being piped through here, and just saw what would happen if I just touched various other contacts. And sometimes you set a circuit on fire and you just burn out a chip that way. But that's part of sort of the joy of discovery. And like a lot of this stuff is like, it's very cheap, right? Like mass-produced, video editors and video processors outside of like professional video mixers. Like there's a lot of things where you're like, oh, well, I need a little device that just changes the color on my home movies a little bit, right? Like those are dime a dozen. And so you can just kind of mess with those and, see what kind of weird stuff will happen when you start poking at the circuits a little bit. It's this almost sort of like, just feels like there's this magic that's kind of in this thing that you get to bring out. It's a very sort of like, I would say, non-scientific process.
Wow.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people where it's basically it's just like, here's a hat that you can add to the logic inside of like some wacky, like monophonic keyboard or something, and like bend that stuff and add like a stereo output for do things. Or if you ever watch like Look Mom No Computer, just some of the weird instruments that people kind of make. It's pretty neat.
Yeah.
So.
Cool. So one of my questions, kind of shoehorned in here, is what are some of the inspirations for the art that you create? Is it just random wackiness coming out of the ether, or do you look for specific types of things to pique your interest? Or
yeah, I mean, there is a general, the history of video art is sort of like full of a lot of like really clever, really interesting things. I mean, obviously you've got like Namjoon Paik, who has done pioneering work, from like the 1950s onwards. There's like a ton of, I was actually just going through this, I wanted to kind of talk about this, but a friend who works at a bookstore found this book. It was like, you like video art, read this book. It's just like unbelievable. It's called Before Projection Video Sculpture, 1974 to 1995. And so like you go through here and you see these just sort of like incredible works that are all based around like CRTs. I think that there's just like a ton of like fascinating ways that we can just sort of like, play with, this technology that's was sort of abundant, 30 years ago, play off of nostalgia, play off of like all of these different kind of ideas that are just sort of like bopping around and have been for, quite some time. I was thinking specifically like about how like video art has traditionally been this kind of medium of experimentation. It's been, sort of considered, at least like in the 1970s, as this new sort of like rambunctious like field of, like people going out and doing field recordings on U-matic or, like early sort of like VHS stuff. And it kind of has always been a space for, I think, marginalized people to like play with art and to sort of like especially talk through the sort of like portrayals that we, exist in the media. Like anything that you do with a CRT or with video art in general is by its nature in conversation with the mass media, right? Like the way that we consume, information is over the computer, or it's over the TV, or, it's over like, it's mediated through this screen in a way that like, painting isn't necessarily, right? So I was thinking like specifically about how we can talk about, portrayals of queer people. Like I'm a queer and trans woman. I think that like the way that we are portrayed in the mass media is something that could be sort of like used as an inspiration to make art that is like playing with that idea of representation. I was thinking about Adrian Piper's work, Out of the Corner, which talks about her experience as a Black person in the United States and the sort of portrayal of Black people in media, how that kind of has worked. Like, there's been this like rich history of just sort of marginalized groups using the venue of like video and the venue of like TVs and computers to talk about the way that, you know, outside of art we're seen. So yeah, I think that a lot of inspiration comes from just sort of like the history of that and the way that these things kind of are useful as commentary. I think a lot of it also, like, inspiration kind of comes from just playing with things and seeing what interesting things like kind of come out of the technology. So, you know, like I follow a lot of, like, you know, old computer stuff, you know, on Blue Sky or on, you know, Discord or whatever. And sometimes I see something that somebody's putting together just for, you know, a hobby thing. And I'm like, well, I can make a piece of art with that, right?
Mhm.
So like the piece that I'm working on right now, using, you know, the PVM-97, the security monitor, right? Like that came from a conversation that was on Insert Credit, which is a video games podcast that I listen to, specifically talking about imaging high resolution video games, right? Like on a Genesis or SNES, right? You want to do channel by channel to get like the highest possible resolution of image of, say, like Sonic or something like that. And I was like, well, I could use that as a sort of way to glitch individual channels, maybe tell a story about surveillance and queerness and like this idea of like what it's like to be watched but not seen. And all of that just comes from just somebody who's having an idle conversation about some other aspect of technology. So you kind of open yourself up to like the rich history of art and the rich history of technology, and also just people, you know, talking about their own little interests and hobbies. And you start to draw connections between all of these individual things, and those connections end up sort of manifesting into pieces of art.
Cool.
What are your thoughts on how video art has kind of faced resistance from the traditional kind of art establishment? I remember that, I mean, it far predates Andy Warhol using an Amiga to
Yeah.
digitally paint Debbie
Mhm.
Harry and things like that. But I just, you know, it seems like it took a while for this to be recognized as sort of a legitimate form of expression and art. Kind of, what are your thoughts about all that?
Yeah, before, really quick digression, if you like Warhol's Amiga stuff, go check out No No Nookie TV by Barbara Hammer. Really cool Amiga queer video art piece. It's like early sort of like lesbian video art from like 1987. It's fucking incredible. And oh, can I? Sorry, I probably
Too late.
shouldn't.
You just did. You just did.
Sorry.
We're off the air in Utah, but that's fine.
Okay. Well, we were off the air on Utah probably a long time ago. I said the word queer earlier, so we were probably cut off then. So it's all fine.
Well, they just
Why?
they take it
Yeah.
as strange. So,
Yeah, right. They'll use it in the original sense, which is a
Yes.
non-reclaimed slur.
Right.
Right. So yeah. Anyway, so just it's worth watching that. Yeah, the history, video art has kind of always been, like I said, it's been kind of like this like irreverent like ability to sort of like put together art that's sort of outside of the mainstream. But to be honest, like photography was treated that way back in like the 1800s when photography first became sort of like a common practice. So every sort of like incipient form of art goes through this. But the thing that I think is actually like really cool about like video art more generally is that like we're all used to watching video in like, you know, we're watching like TV, we're watching, you know, movies, we're watching all of this kind of stuff. Video art is kind of acts as this sort of like democratization of this thing that we've always been seeing for a while. And I think people are just sort of like reticent to the idea that like individuals and like groups of, or small groups of individuals can be used, can tell these stories using just like kind of commercial off the shelf gear in ways that are sort of compelling and heartbreaking and can, you know, talk to you about sort of like their conditions and the conditions of humanity, you know, all with a small group and without spending a ton of money, right? Like video art has kind of been like the sort of like weird queer cousin of, you know, the art scene always, because it's just like anybody can just sort of like pick this up and sort of, you know, document the intricacies of their life. Yeah, and I kind of like, I think that's an incredibly cool thing to have. I think especially like 1980s and early 90s computer technology is really the sort of like beginning of like that happening for computer graphics in cinema and in film. Like we talk about the Amiga, you know, like having like a cheap Genlock on an Amiga 500 is just life-changing for artists who, you know, aren't going to have the ability to do like advanced CG and like you're not going to buy an Indigo, right? Like you can't afford that. So it's just this question of like, all right, well, an Amiga 500, you know, in the early 90s especially, you get one for cheap. Somebody was getting rid of it or, you know, something like that, or a 1200 or whatever. And you can just make art using this kind of like very cheap device, like video art that has like, you know, computer generated effects. And it might be primitive. It might be very basic. You might be just drawing a couple things in D-Paint, you know, it's not a big deal. But you can get this thing that previously, you know, was very, very difficult to find. I think that like the idea of like computer art and video art are sort of interrelated in that particular way, where like it's a democratization of this thing that, you know, has been around for a while, and now people can just very easily pick it up and do it. And I think that like using the sort of like 1990s video technology to do that is this idea of like, let's go back to that time. Like, let's sort of imagine a time when this was novel and new and exciting and a little bit more like real, and like see what we can do with it. It's like recording an album in 2022 or whatever on cassette tape, right? Like you're going for the lo-fi, you're going for something that's evocative, and you're you know, hearkening back to a particular moment in time.
And I think you hit on a very important point there, which was it let marginalized communities, it let people that did not have a voice in the mainstream be able to have access to a lot of those tools. They may not be broadcast quality tools, but it let them tell their stories, it let them share their message, and there's a validation in that. And I just remember being in college and working at the campus TV station, like all the people that, because we had like an Amiga 4000 with a toaster, and we had a couple of 3/4 decks and a switcher and a big video library. All the people that were just like, they would watch the campus cable and be like, kind of like, oh, this is a cool world. And they would come by the studio and just look around and then be like, I could make a show, or I could make a thing. And it's like, yes, you can. I'll be happy to sit here and help you make some title graphics for it, you know?
That's the thing that I just find so cool about all this stuff, is that like you present a library of tools to people who didn't know that these tools were available, and they go nuts. Yeah, it's really cool. I think that we you know, the other aspect of this is I think that we are also kind of overburdened with tools now. Like I think if I were to like install, like DaVinci Resolve is the software that I use to edit all of my videos, right? Once I capture them. But like DaVinci Resolve can do everything. Like I could lose myself in this free software and I wouldn't really know where to start, versus like something like an Amiga, like, you know, your graphics are on the screen, you've got D-Paint running. It's a really simple set of things. And these sort of like artistic and creative, you know, outlets for that are limited enough that like you can explore all of them and feel like, wow, there's like something here in this section, but there's not really anything for me in this other section. So yeah, it's simplified.
There are some boundaries. We're blessed for choice these days on ways to make it happen. So I could see where it's overwhelming. It was kind of nice to be in a little bit of a box in the old days, because it at least like you could push right up to the edge.
And CDI here in the chat mentions something that I was just thinking of. Limited capacity provokes creativity. And it reminds me of what's happening a lot in retro video games, very similarly, where people are finding ways to take like a Nintendo and NES and make it do things it could never do in the 80s, and just pushing the absolute crud out of the media. And I think that, you know, your world there and those limitations actually allow you to push those boundaries in similar ways.
And you have a niche.
Yeah, and I think, well, it's funny you mentioned that, because I've also been doing a lot of work lately with the SGDK for the Sega Genesis. So SGDK, like if you're not familiar with it, is just a set of tools for the Sega Genesis that lets you just very easily write your own ROMs and games for that. And the work that I've been doing for the SGDK has been creating basically a simple video synth using sprites, and then you know, glitching that and doing feedback loops and stuff like that live. So I'll be able to like play with the Sega Genesis controller, and while a band is playing, you know, on stage, project art behind them. And I have a blast with that. But like, that's kind of the thing where like, well, in order to do that, not only do you need the Sega Genesis, which you did have in the 90s, but you need like a good flash cart, which you kind of didn't back then, and a good set of dev tools that can just run on, you know, commodity laptop hardware, which definitely didn't exist back then. So, yeah.
All right, I got a loaded question. Actually, it's a two-part question. I'm going to ask the second part first. What is your favorite camera that you own?
Okay, does it have to be that's a really good question. Does it have to be digital, film, video, still, any kind of camera?
I'm going to say yes. And let you fill in the blank.
Yeah, what's
What do
your
you
favorite
like?
analog?
Favorite analog camera. Okay, my favorite analog camera in general is my Leica M4. It's just a phenomenal camera that feels incredible to use every time I pick it up. It used to be my Polaroid 350, but they stopped making FP100C. I will never forgive Fuji for that. Evil company. I hope it haunts them. But yeah, no, I really like working with like film photography. That was kind of my first love back when I was like 15. My uncle like taught me how to develop film in a dark room and stuff like that. I would say my favorite like digital camera of any sort is any sort of Mavica. I love the floppy disk Mavicas. I have circuit bent the Mavicas. I've bridged a couple of pins on the sensors and run a potentiometer in, and you can make everything look like it's melting. It's awesome. It's just like such a fun little, just terrible camera. They're also dime a dozen because like they're early digital cameras and like they made a cajillion of them. So like you can buy one at like a flea market for $10 and then really fuck it up.
You haven't. Speaking of like the kind of the bending on those cameras, you had an app.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want me? I'll talk about Garbage Cam. So when I was, Jesus Christ, that was let's see, 2016. So that
I was gonna say that's a couple years ago.
8 years ago. I was kind of going through a very driftless phase of my life, and I was like, I was traveling at the time. I was kind of like, I put all my stuff in storage and I was traveling around Europe, and I was going around by trains all the time, you know, place to place on trains constantly. And I was like, I had been looking at slit scan photography, which is this technique where you basically take a small slit and you put a lens in front of that. So the slit acts as sort of the sensor, and then you run a roll of film on a motor behind it. Which creates a sort of like time series image where like the x-axis is just sort of like, you know, things moving across it. And people have done that with scanners before. Like you'll take like an old scanner and then rip out just the sensor bar. And then like I've seen a series done on trains that way, where like a subway train will drive by a platform and you'll get an image of the train in this kind of spooky, weird way. And I was like, well, I at the time had an iPhone 8 or whatever. And I was like, well, this has got a high-speed camera in it. It's got the 120 FPS camera. Can I do this with the camera? And the answer is yes. So that created this app called Garbage Cam. It's open source on Swift. The Swift is written like it was Java because I'm professionally a Kotlin developer. At the time, I was a Java developer. It's god-awful code. Actually, I'm proud of it. It just looks like it's Java. A garbage camera for garbage people. Anyway, so there's I did that, and I would do a lot of images with that. It's got like a couple other modes too, like one where it uses the video feed to like just do a grid of images. Yeah, it's kind of like glitch art, but it's at the time I was kind of bemoaning the idea that film photography had all these interesting things you could do with film, and digital photography really didn't have that. Like everything that was digital was very sterile and boring, and I didn't like how that felt. So I was like, I want to make a digital thing that looks weird and interesting and compelling. So that was kind of the reasoning behind that app. I had the idea of doing Garbage Cam XL with an as yet undefined feature set using GLSL shaders, but that might come later. That's something that I might do if I said, like, I recently I recently lost my job because the company that I was working for kind of fell apart, and I was doing a bunch of like imaging stuff at this job, and you know, it left me with a bunch of art ideas. So I'm just like, maybe when I'm finally gonna have some free time in my unemployment, I'll put this app together.
Is the original Garbage Cam still available out on iTunes?
Oh, if it's not, it should be. I think it is. You might want to check, but if it's not, you can compile it. Download Xcode. Sorry, that's not actually very helpful, and I do realize that. But if
It's
it's
okay.
not,
I'll just spend $100 to go ahead and get the dev account and go from there. It's
yeah,
fine.
it's fine.
No, I bought it back in the
Listen,
day, so I
Are you
just
Ron? Are you saying that my app is not worth $100 to you? I think it's easily worth
Ooh.
$100.
it's
Oh,
like here's the
Ron.
deal. $99.95. Past that, you're kind of pushing it.
Yeah,
I mean,
fair.
it's
That's reasonable. We're price sensitive consumers, right? Inflation's
Right.
crazy.
Yeah. So I feel like the first part of my question, because that was actually the second part, might require you to come back for a second stream, which is
Have
what
to.
cameras do you have in your collection? And I feel like this could go for quite a while.
Oh wow. Okay, let me go over the ones that I use the most. I'll give you
Okay.
I'll give you like a top 5 of the cameras that I use the most. Number 1 is going to be the camera that I'm currently appearing on, which is a Nikon ZF. Also one of my most recent acquisitions. Love this camera. It's portable. It's beautiful. It's really, really great. Somebody said Nikon F. I do have a Nikon F. I don't shoot it very often, but I do have one. So the ZF is my most used. Right now, my Hasselblad 500 CM is getting a lot of use because I just got the Instax back for that. Just incredible piece of engineering. Really, really happy to have that thing. And happy that somebody made. This is the Nons back. It's a little bit spendy, but everything Hasselblad is a little bit spendy.
Big format.
Sorry, what was that?
Is it large format?
Yeah, it's a square 6x6, medium format. Yeah. So yeah, and like the Instax square film is almost exactly 6x6, so it works out great. So yeah, I've been using that one a bunch. Obviously, I mentioned the Leica M4, which I shoot a lot. The video camera that I use the most is literally just like one of the most boring little Sony Handycam Hi8 cameras, like one of the silver ones with the screen. I don't even know the model number, but that one is just like constantly in use. And then probably one of my Mavicas, the FD91 gets a lot of, I can't remember my 91. I never remember the Mavica model numbers, but there's one that I have that's a 640 by 480 Mavica that has the full on like large lens. It's really, really good. I probably use that one quite a bit. So yeah. Oh God, somebody mentioned a 4x5 press camera. I also have a Crown graphic that I use semi-often. I've been trying to get into more, but it's just such a pain to shoot large format. Like 4x5 is a nightmare to shoot.
Plus, getting people to stand still for 17 minutes for the silver nitrate plate to properly develop. It's just
absolutely.
Who's got time with that?
And who's
you're trying to do a selfie? It's like, oh my gosh, my forearm is just on fire right now.
Yeah, there's not exactly a market for tintype portraits these days, you know? You stand outside at Fisherman's Wharf and offer to take tintype. Actually, I probably could make a lot of money doing that.
There's your next job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Tintype photographer. Yeah, 100%.
Cool. So I think the next question is Javier's. I think our wonderful co-host here, Ron, shoehorned an extra question in there for Javier to drop.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Oh, you mentioned CRTs being used as part of video sculpture earlier in the interview. You integrate CRTs to your art. Have you also had to learn how to repair them?
Yes. Huge props to Andy King, who runs CRT Database. I'm sure y'all are aware of his work, but he's phenomenal. Local also runs a really good Discord for this kind of stuff. But I've read a ton of CRT database. A lot of what he's been writing about on his Patreon is really good. So I've kind of like learned a lot from just sort of like following his work. And yeah, it's funny because like you asked, like, is CRT repair useful for your installations? Like, as of yet, CRT disrepair has been more useful. I had a piece a while back that involved me deconverging a just cheap Magnavox set. And like, yeah, it helps to open up a CRT and know like, oh, if I screw with the convergence rings, it'll look interesting in this particular way. I think about a lot about like Namjoon Paik's Zen for TV and how that was basically just like originally found a TV with vertical collapse and made a piece with it, and then it did relatively well. People were interested in it, and he had to make another one. And it was like, well, okay, well now I'm going to remove the circuitry and learn how to work on it. So a lot of it is about just sort of being like, well, there's an effect that I saw that I thought was cool. How do I reproduce that effect? And then you learn like the ins and outs of circuits. Yeah.
Without getting zapped.
Yeah.
Okay, so my other thing is I think that the CRT danger is overstated. Be careful. Always be careful. Always make sure that you're following, discharging when you need to discharge, and staying away from capacitors. But people talk about the CRT capacitors they talk about the CRT discharge as being the problem, when the power capacitors are generally much, much more dangerous. Like anything that's near the power board, anything that's transforming, AC down to DC is going to probably be a lot more sketchy, dealing with accidental discharge. So I think in general, people are pretty scared of working on CRTs. I've heard like there's a lot of just nonsense about CRTs emitting, high amounts of radiation or whatever. And like, that was probably true about, or could have been true about, poorly designed TVs in the 50s and 60s. 80s, 90s CRTs for computers and stuff are not going to have that problem. And I think there's a lot of people are too scared to like open stuff up and fix it, when I would want to sort of encourage people like, hey, like, y'all should, like take a look at like repairing the things that you have. Just don't take it for granted, right? Like learn about how they work and, get inside and mess with things, like take things apart, that kind of stuff.
Agree. I was really afraid of my CRTs until I start to poking with them, and of course I learned the dangers, and I kept myself aware of that. But other than that, you're right.
Yeah, definitely learn the dangers. Like don't go into this unprepared, because like they are dangerous. But I think that people are very much like, oh, like I'm gonna die if I ever do this, and it's like, there's a very small likelihood of anything horrible happening. Just read up and discharge when you need to discharge, and be careful. Don't put both hands on a CRT and take either side through your heart.
I mean,
that will kill you.
The worst that can really happen is just look at Javier, and you'll see the lack of hair.
I know.
That's really
I used to have long blonde hair. Now
he still does, but it's all like in the drain. In the tub.
It's funny. Seeing the comment from one bit in the comments about like I bet 1% of Adrian's CRT repair videos are monitors that Cara messed creatively with in the past. I have definitely gotten myself into situations where like I've been trying to repair a monitor, or I've been like messing around with a monitor, and I've gotten it to the point where I'm like, I don't know what. I am very lost here. I need somebody to bail me out. But thankfully, there are, great Discords, and go on, Facebook groups and Reddit, stuff like that. Like people are genuinely happy to share knowledge. I think, don't expect everybody to be super responsive all the time, but like people want you to learn, right? Like that's been really, I found that very affirming. So,
yeah.
I think the question on everyone's mind right now is, did Bjork disassembling a television on TV help or hurt people getting interested in CRT repair?
So here, my hot take here is, if you're listening to Bjork and you're a big Bjork fan, you probably already are like, I could take apart that CRT.
I have the right amount of chemicals in my bloodstream right now.
Absolutely.
That I think I could accomplish this.
At the very least, like, I could make some art by like messing up a CRT, and sometimes you might hit it with a hammer, and like, probably don't do that.
Here comes, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
Cool.
Mm.
Did Bjork assembling run?
Yeah.
I just saw the question you popped in there. That's
Oh
right.
yeah. No, it's true.
Oh, that's cool. Well, if our hosts here don't have any other further questions, I do have a few questions from the audience that were popped up that we haven't covered yet.
Sure.
I'm going to start with one that's funny because we know this gentleman for his proclivities. 1-Bit Fever Dreams, our wonderful black and white monochrome friend, says, monochrome graphics, yay or yes?
Okay, here's
Yes.
the thing with monochrome graphics. If you have per channel color, you can get color graphics out of monochrome graphics. So, monochrome graphics, obviously you can make color graphics out of monochrome, but you can't make very good monochrome out of color. So obviously monochrome's superior. I mean, you could
just look at the Wizard of
desaturate.
Oz.
Yeah.
Yes.
You
I
could
think you
desaturate a CRT. Yeah. But that's not fun. Like, it's much better to have a monochrome display.
JVC made those hybrid broadcast displays for a while. That it was a monochrome CRT and then grayscale, whatever. It's a black and white CRT with a LCD that sat in front of it that basically flashed and just synchronized with the color, the chroma, or the chroma data.
Oh, then you probably get like a super sharp image out of that.
Yeah, they were something else back in the day because
Cathode Ray dude did a video about that. He took one apart and explained how it worked. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I mean, I really think so the reason I was doing this, recent project with black and white displays is because of the idea of a film recorder, where a film recorder has a monochrome display and then puts color filters in front of the display, the tiny display. So you can transfer a video frame grab of any sort on video over to like a camera, like film at the time. I can imagine that like doing that with like an LCD, gives you that kind of fidelity. But yeah. It's pretty neat.
Francois asked a question kind of much earlier. Have you ever presented your work on the Adafruit Show and Tell? They do kind of a live stream where they talk about retro art and stuff every so often. So, and if not, I know Lady Ada watches the show, so I just want to make sure it's you should have Cara on to talk about all of her cool projects.
Hell yeah.
If you haven't already.
Thank you. I've never been on there. I would love to be on there. It's funny because I think that like New Session, the Telnet literary magazine that I did several years back, probably would have been an ideal thing for that. There's like a bunch of stuff I would like be happy to talk about on a show like that. So yeah, it'd be super cool. But no, I've never done it.
They're missing out because I think you would be a great addition to one of their episodes.
Yeah,
Thank
definitely.
you very much. Yeah.
If our interview has been any proof of that,
Yeah, totally.
I think it is. So, we have a comment from Ian Scott, also known as Polpo, also known as the guy that makes the Pico Gusses. He says he loves Namjoon Pike and his Pake. I don't know how to pronounce that. And his efforts to keep CRTs working to keep his art alive. And it seems like you may be doing some similar things, learning how to work on the devices to keep them running to do the thing.
Yeah, I think preservation is one of those things that's like critically important, and like thank God for the Internet Archive, because so many service manuals for CRTs are hosted there and nowhere else. So.
And then last question we have, it's pronounced Pico Tom Barber. Sorry. Anyway, I got distracted for a moment. 1-Bit Fever Dreams. Final question: are the constraints? And I'm going to paraphrase this. There they are. Are the constraints of old tech bolstering your creativity, or do you get more inspiration from previous artists?
I mean, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I think these things are kind of similar in that, like, you sort of know what ground has been tread and you can kind of explore it. But also, like, I think I started playing with a lot of the stuff for art before I had actually, like, gone through the sort of, like, history of video art and understood about, like, what other people were doing with it. So I think just sort of going in there and playing with it is useful. I mean, obviously, I would recommend everybody, study up and you sort of know your art, know your form, know like the technical constraints and the history of it. Like, otherwise you'll look a bit like a dingus. But like, I do think that like the idea of like you sit down at a computer and there's only a finite number of things that you can do with it, or like you have a limited software library, or you have a limited sort of like set of things like inputs on the back of a CRT or whatever, and it does kind of be like, all right, well, my tools are arrayed out in front of me. What do I do with these tools? So yeah, I think it's, it's important to sort of see what other people have done with it. Cause I certainly think that like being exposed to like, some of the like video art in passing, like I talked about Barbara Hammer, like that kind of stuff, like helped me think, oh, I want to do stuff like this. But also I think I can see video art, like I've gone to, museums or installations or galleries and seen video art where I'm like, wow, that's really cool. I want to be able to do something like that, using modern like tools, and then not really sat down and done it, right? Like it kind of helps to have like some of the more like, retro stuff to be like, well, there's an angle, there's something that kind of compels you into it. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and last but not least, where can people find you online?
Yeah, probably the best two places are Blue Sky, where I'm at Cara.city. And the other best place is Instagram, where I'm at Cara Essie. That's spelled CaraEssie. A lot of my art stuff ends up on both Blue Sky and Instagram, though I think like Instagram kind of has a lot more incidental pieces of like, I'm working on a CRT today. Here's like, the circuit board, like that kind of stuff that's way less interesting to write a whole post about, but might be fun to just put on an Instagram story.
Friend of the show, Jim Leonard. Yeah. I'd pay real money to see what Cara does with a Scanimate.
What's a Scanimate? I actually don't know what a Scanimate is. I think I've heard of it, but I don't know what it is.
Googling Scanimate.
Yeah. We're all sitting here going, none of us know what this is.
Analog computer animation synthesizer system developed from the 60s to the 80s, blah, 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 blah.
Wait, what was it used for? Because I think I was Googling this at some point because somebody was doing something interesting with it in like the 80s. I don't remember exactly what it was. Use in... Oh, okay. So, yeah, just like really early, like 1970s, 1980s. Yeah. Oh,
it's
really
a wall.
cool.
It's an analog computer animation video synthesizer.
Oh,
so
God,
it makes me think about like the graphics in Willy Wonka.
I keep thinking one of these days I'm actually going to like put together. I have like a basic video synthesizer. I've got a Chav that I built myself, and then there's the Genesis software that I wrote. But like I need to eventually get like an actual video synthesizer.
Okay,
Literally,
I feel really good because I just pulled that out of the ether. That was the machine that they used for the graphics and stuff in Willy Wonka.
Yeah,
and it actually was.
And it actually was. Like I don't know if I read about this or something in the past, but yeah.
The deep lore. It's like sitting there in the back of your brain. You never know when you need it. Yeah.
It's just waiting for Ken Jennings to call me one day.
Yeah.
If Millionaire is still a thing, I'll be his phone a friend.
Cool. Awesome sauce. CDI asks, any art displays in the East Bay?
So last year I had an installation piece down at Rock Paper Scissors Gallery. This year I have not been pitching to a lot of call for arts, which is mostly because this job that I've had has been kind of crazy. But since I am now unemployed, I'll probably be doing a lot more pitches. So there's a couple things that I would like to actually show. So I will, I'll post on Blue Sky, I'll post on Instagram, if I have any like installations coming up.
Please do. Let us know. We'll repost and make sure that we can, with our limited reach, that we can get people there too. So
yes.
And I just want to say, like, thank you all so much for having me on. This has been like a blast. Seriously, super fun. So.
Actually,
I've just been sitting here fangirling the entire time. Yeah, like I've seen all your posts. Your cat You're
Yeah,
you're adorable cat.
Dazzler, who's
Yeah.
outdoors and is super mad that he can't be in here because when I was setting up the AV stuff, he just kept pawing at my backdrop. I'm like, you can't do that on air.
Okay, have you
Yeah.
seen my cat like licking
That's
my
true.
nose all
I
night?
know.
Yes,
I
you
was-
can.
I was more nervous because this isn't my show.
What I was going to say is that normally this kind of wraps up interview time, but we do have a little short segment where we talk about like recent gets or other things that kind of the hosts have been working
Ron,
on
can
and
we
things
just,
like that.
Can we just address Curtis's quick question?
We can in a
Okay.
second, but let me finish. We normally just kind of talk about some of those other issues and stuff, and you'd be welcome to stay if you had some other stuff to share. But I know that you were kind of pressed for time this evening, but whatever it is that you'd like to do.
How much longer is the other thing? I told a friend that I would be in the city for dinner at 7, so now I'm kind of like, how long? What is traffic like on the Bay Bridge right now?
I understand. But if you have to drop out, it's okay. But I wanted to make sure that you knew that you were welcome to stay for what probably, if we set it right now to a 15-minute limit, that we could get it done in 15 minutes.
I probably gotta go. I'm sorry. I'd love to say, but looking at traffic, I gotta get going. I'm sorry.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
Great
we'll-
meeting you.
We'll wrap it up.
Yeah.
So, Cara, thanks so much. Hosts, hang around for or actually, before we go to what Trina was saying, one final last question. Curtis Boyle was like, did you take any inspiration from Tron for some of like the low poly art and things like that?
I love Tron, and it's a great movie. I love like the aesthetics behind it, but I don't think that really entered into a lot of like my thoughts about like video art more generally. I think that like sort of incidental scenes of glitch art in a lot of sci-fi kind of has a lot more than that, like scenes when there'll be like somebody working on a computer and then the computer goes all fuzzy or whatever, like stuff like that, like that kind of incidental stuff has actually kind of been more of an impact, made more of an impact for me than Tron. But Tron is great. I love Tron.
Yeah, like through a scanner darkly kind of. Like,
okay. Scanner Darkly was a huge impact on me, actually. I watched that when I was 17, and I actually just rewatched it about a year ago for the first time. It was amazing.
I cannot imagine watching the movie without the art overlay, but but no, that was formative for me. So
yeah. Cool. Well, thank you all so much. I really appreciate it.
Cara, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Cara.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
All right.
Was
Sorry,
awesome.
I just wanted to make sure because Cara did say that she kind of had a hard limit
no,
on
that's
when she could be here. So hopefully everybody got their questions answered. All that.
Oh, and by the way, CDI, Jack 68K is now my number. I'm Jack 68K's number one fan now. So screw you.
Yeah, I mean, if your controllers weren't terrible, then maybe we could have done something. But
Cool. So we can take a couple minutes here to talk about what's going on in everybody's world here amongst our brain. Wow, words
making
words brain hard.
Yeah.
What's going on, everybody? Ron, what's going on in your world?
Not a whole lot. Are we doing it where it's like, is this like combo gets what you're working on, or what is this something different?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. All right. So what am I working on? I'm working on a bunch of different junk, but it's probably going to be a little bit. There's going to be some things that are going to pop up in Joe's store, but something that I can actually kind of tease this evening for what you're working on is I actually have a new doodad, which is, hold on, let me make sure I do this correctly. It is the out of focus hat for the Pico Micro Mac. So the idea being that there is now a hat that you can put on top of your Pico Micro Mac or under your Pico Micro Mac. I'm not your dad. You decide how you want to mount it. But the idea is that the latest version of the firmware allows you to boot writable disk images from an SD card. So it's kind of neat. I went through and I've been testing it and working with Joe. And so these should be in the store any day now. Cool. The nice thing about them is we've also got permission for pre-flashing the machines or the pre-flashing. So if you order it from Joe with a Pipico already installed and with the hat already installed, there's a price for that. So if you're not somebody that solders a lot, or you're just like, there's a lot of moving parts, I don't want to mess with it, there's now options for you. So Joe is very kind to offer his services to do all of that. So there's now like just a flat price. It's everything. It's pre-rolled. It's ready to go. You can download your own images online. You can, if you don't want to play around with the SD card, you're gonna let the kids play around with it or something. You pop your SD card out. And by default, it just boots the old demo image that I made a long time, or demo disc that I made a long time ago. It's not writable, so that way that you can make documents, do stuff. When you reboot, it's back to Jump Street. Pop your SD card back in, and then you're ready to go. So those will be popping up in Joe's store pretty shortly. Price to move, price to sell, because I know that people were really wanting that. That was the next big thing. And then that was the what you're working on. The GATS thing is actually kind of something that a friend of mine is working on, or worked on about I don't know, like a very long time. Oh, there we go. I'm finally holding it where it shows up. My friend Jeff Williams, who's basically the writer, director, actor, grip, the guy who does everything for productions and stuff. A very long time ago, I met him when he was making this game. It's called Dark Star, the interactive movie, which this is it is a full motion video game it's like a puzzle game that takes place kind of on this starship, kind of in the far future. Earth is got problems. There's aliens that have came and attacked us, or Martians have actually come and attacked us, and you're solving a mystery aboard this ship that's called the Westwick, and you're trying to solve the answer to this black hole that basically opened up inside our solar system, and to try to figure out what's going on with that. But anyway, Jeff decided that kind of for the anniversary of this game, to turn this into an interactive, or like into a movie that you can actually just watch. And what's kind of neat about it is the game itself, if I can get okay, you might recognize some of the people up here. Clive Robertson is the guy in the middle, but the people in the background, from kind of your left to right, that's Bees McKeever, that's Trace Beaulieu, and Frank Conniff from Mystery Science Theater 3000. Joel Hodgson, Mary Jo Peel, Josh Weinstein, or J. Ellis Weinstein. There's a bunch of people that were former members of the Mystery Science Theater 3000 that are in this game, that are in the movie. And Jeff actually has a Kickstarter that's running right now. He sent me a free copy, just kind of to play around with. The thing with the game, though, it's kind of for retro. It's perfect for us, because now this game is old enough. It runs on retro computers. It runs on vintage computers. So if you got like an older Mac, or you got like a Windows XP box, or like a like even a Windows 7 box, you can install this and play it. And it's actually quite a bit of fun. Cool. But I posted a link to his Kickstarter in there. It only runs for like 9 more days. He's done really well in the Kickstarter, but you can pick this game up for just like pennies. And what I would really suggest that you play it, because it is quite a bit of fun. If you like murder mystery, puzzle game, full motion video, it took him so long to develop this game that it actually went from like full motion video was a thing in gaming, and then it wasn't a thing. And then it came back up the other side, that people were like interested in kind of the vintage and these older full motion video titles. And he launched it. It was like, he just like serendipitous, launched it right at the right time and did really well with it. So, but it's Dark Star, the interactive movie. Again, stars a lot of the cast of Mystery Science Theater 3000. It is definitely a buy. So thank you.
Yay!
And I don't have to be big anymore.
Yay! Who wants to
So
go
you
next?
can't be big in Japan.
I think Javier should go next, because I'm still writing my list.
And I got what do I got? I got a lot of things. I've been working like a little machine all week, and the biggest thing is that I have my new store online, 8bstuff.com. Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm about to also have this little guy over here run, have it done for selling.
Yeah.
So and also new things like well, not new, but you've seen this one. But finally, I got like more than
Oh,
one.
it's a Lisa.
It's a Lisa mouse,
Okay.
but oh no, it's
Yes.
Optical.
Joe wants you to give me one of those for money dollars.
oh yeah, you will have it. So everything is 3D printed, and you can see the little ABT.
He's got his own. You got your own little logo on there. That's awesome.
That is correct.
Nice.
So same thing with this little drives. I'm showcasing in here, so you can see that it fits perfectly in here, and nothing. It just works, and I am very proud and happy of it.
That's funny. 8-bit tease.
8-bit tease. Oh.
You
And
need to get into the caffeinated market.
Yeah, why not?
Right?
New gets. I got stuff finally coming from BCF. You know, things that I got from BCF,
Mhm.
and I got a profile drive. So I'll be showing that later.
Cool.
But yeah, that's it. The big thing is that I got the store and this emulator coming out pretty soon.
Awesome sauce. Cool beans.
Oh yeah.
Miss Trina, what's going on in your world?
Hey, what's going on in my world? Well, for those of you who watched last episode, you noticed I was a little bit druggy because I had just come back from the World of Retro Computing event. I brought back some motherboards, a couple of video cards, one of which went out to Tech Ambrosia, who just did a stream yesterday, and kind of berated me for not cleaning it out properly. But anyway, I had blown. I used a can air, but I really didn't look at it that closely before I shipped it out, and didn't realize that it was still caked with dust under the fan. Although the nice part is, I've never taken one of these apart, and now I know how to take one of these apart. I got a cat back in my lap. But so yeah, so I got a bunch of motherboards. 3 of them are up for sale right now. I might have one sold, the parts one. So yay! There's somebody who's doing a short film, and yeah, I'll answer that in a second, Jonathan. And they want to make a room like that looks like the inside of a computer, and they want like dead motherboards and everything. So they're going to be buying my dead motherboards.
Nice.
So, including this one. Also, what am I going to be working on? What am I working on? I finally ordered a processor for this board, but I remember this board being a pain in the batoot last time I tried to get it to work. I'm going to try it one more time. Get a processor really cheap for it off eBay. So
And not
give
put
that
it in backwards.
Well, fortunately for this one, it actually, if you look, you can see the maybe not, but there's little keyways on the board or on the thing. And speaking of putting in things backwards, I did get a replacement chip for this one from the same seller. So once I get both processors in, I'm going to be streaming hopefully this week, testing these boards out,
Cool.
putting the processor in the right way. 'Cause what I ended up doing, so that Javier doesn't feel so people can stop picking on Javier. You can pick on me now. And Opie, fuck off. Sorry, the cat's driving me absolutely crazy. She's running all over the place. What I did is I put it in this way on the board and fried the chip. So
well, you
I
owe
have,
me some money.
yeah, I mean, fortunately, it was
Right.
only like $12 with shipping, so it wasn't overly expensive. So I just ordered from the same seller. I have the chip in. So now I'm just waiting for, as I said, I'm waiting for the other chip, which hopefully should be in early this week. I'm going to kind of, unfortunately, lately people on eBay haven't been providing tracking numbers, and I have a virtual PO box at the post office.
Mhm.
And in order to get a notification that I get something, I need a tracking number on the parcel.
Yeah.
Nicely on Thursday, I want to say, I think it was Thursday. The one of the guys that worked there just made up a tracking number, and I got a notification, your parcel's there. So I went over and I'm like, he went in the back when he saw me in line, grabbed the parcel, and I went up to him, and I'm like, I'm also here for another one. I don't know what this one is. And he's like, oh, that's the one I made up. So I'm like, sweet.
Yeah.
So I told him that I'm waiting for 2 more if he can make the 2 more tracking numbers up when they arrive, because he works through the week, and just so I get notification.
In the U.S., the post office here has a thing that's called informed delivery, where it's basically you can sign up for a thing, and any time that something hits your mailbox or PO box, if it's a letter, if it's a package, it doesn't have to have tracking anything. If it's coming to your thing, you'll get an email notification, and sometimes like a scan that will show like what the front of it looks like. I don't know if Canada Mail offers. It doesn't matter what it's called. It's, I mean, but yeah,
Royal Canadian Mounted Postman.
Royal Canadian, right.
Royal Canadian mounted mailboxes.
And to answer Jonathan's question, kind of. I did solder a blue SCSI, and that was the last thing I've soldered.
Did it work?
I don't know. I haven't tried it yet. I'm kind of scared.
He's afraid.
Honestly, what I want to do is over a voice call, sit down with Gutbomb and actually, like, here's my microscope. Let's take a look at it together so that he can take a peek at it. Just because he is the master at doing that, and I am just a novice. So, but yeah, I have done a little bit. I've also done some desoldering, which I much more prefer. Just desoldering chips, way more easier. Just desoldering it.
Like, oh, if I break it, who cares?
Yeah, right. But I did find out. I sent off the 4 chips that I desoldered to Will of KMAC Vintage fame, and he did confirm the other day that one of the chips he used and it worked. So,
oh, that's good.
Yay! I didn't break it by taking it off. So.
Yay!
So yeah, so that's where I'm at with soldering. It's still I'm still kind of novice to it. I honestly just haven't had anything to solder or desolder or do anything with. So that's kind of where it's at this point.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome sauce.
So Joe.
Yeah.
What about you?
I'm Big. Hi, everybody. I'm Joe. Lots of stuff going on in Joe Land. The first thing I want to complain about is my 3D printer. It's being freaking dumb. It keeps doing that. It keeps clogging the entire hot end, and it's making me so angry. I replaced both the extruder and the hot end element. The entire head has been replaced, and it's still freaking clogged. I don't know why.
I don't know either.
I'm done being.
Oh, I was
Joe.
thinking,
You should consider just go to the store. You can buy Dominoes anywhere.
I have no idea what that's supposed
go
to
back
mean.
to the picture.
Go back to the picture.
Yeah, they look
I
like
see.
dominoes.
I see where.
Oh, wrong.
Yeah, just cycle through your 90 cameras, Joe.
Yeah,
there you go.
Oh,
Yeah,
they look like dominoes. I get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I saw
I
where
thought you were making a pizza reference or something. Anyway.
No.
You're hungry.
Joe, I did have a thought about that though, because we were talking about that pre-stream. Is the humidity or something different in that that room than compared to where you are?
No,
that's what was behind you.
The AMS unit at the top is completely sealed with a gasket, and it has about 2 pounds of desiccant in it. The humidity in there is off scale low on my humidity sensor.
Okay.
So there's no humidity, and I also
I didn't know if there was like some kind of climate, something to do with the climate or something.
No,
different in the room.
It's done this before, and usually what I do is I just replace the hot end, the part that actually melts the plastic. It just gets clogged with something, and I replace it, and it takes care of it. But this has been 3 different types of filament I've run through it now. Black, blue, and my good color fab filament that always works have clogged it with both a replacement nozzle and a replacement extruder motor that actually pushes it into the nozzle. So I don't know what's going on. It's done this before, and it's always been my interpretation that I have to kind of slide back and say that the silicate gel I used to use before the desiccant was like finer grain, like sand, and it's small enough to get trapped on, like it can static cling to the filament when it comes through. It's possible that the particles are just bigger than the nozzle aperture, and it clogs it. But I removed this filament here was cleanly wound off of a master spool onto a sub spool and has never gone anywhere near any of that stuff. So I don't know what's going on. What sucks is that I got stuff to print. So I don't know. The desk could be full and now spent. No, I just checked it. It's at 10. It's at off scale low. It's completely, it's fine. So usually what happens too when it gets moist, the filament will break.
Everyone's favorite word.
Yeah, moist. Or you'll get like popping. It'll foam up because the water expands and causes it to foam up like popcorn, but it'll make your print crappy, but it won't like clog the head. The head just clog solid. Like if I put a clearing, there's little clearing needles you can put, it won't even go all the way through. It'll go doop and get stuck. I don't know.
So it's really clogged up in there.
Maybe you're gonna have to change the head. Yeah.
I've already done it. It's a brand new head. That head has done 2 prints. It's done 2 print jobs. This is the second print job.
Damn.
Have you tried putting X-Lax into the machine? Yeah, then it wouldn't get so clogged. And
it is getting near the end of the year, and I do need to find expenses. So I may just say F it and buy a new printer and do a raffle for this printer. I'll just replace it with the same printer because the X1 Carbon's awesome, but maybe do a raffle for this unit and be like, here, who wants this thing? Because like, I don't know, like I just need to give it whatever.
Yeah, maybe
make it somebody else's problem.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. I totally haven't done that before. Anyway, back to actual fun things. So I have 2 projects that are going on. Project number 1, I'm going to see if I can switch to it here. I believe it is this screen. Yes.
Yeah. There it is.
Yeah. So the TechScan MSI CompuVid SpectraGen 4B. I have started poking around on this project a little bit in the background. The machine itself works great. Reverse engineering still needs to occur, but I've got a physical machine now for streaming. So you are watching OBS taking an HDI input of another computer running OBS, taking an RGB input from the SpectraGen. It's like layers. But the plan here, of course, is to get this machine set up with a streaming PC so that I can run a 24/7, 365 stream of the SpectraGen because I'm a nerd.
That is so
nice.
cool.
I love it.
It would be super cool.
Love it.
I still got to get the programming done. The cool thing about this industrial PC that I have is it has 6 serial ports. So I have plenty of serial ports to actually send stuff over the serial lines to the SpectraGen. So I'm really spoiled for choice on that. So that's really cool. Wait, it's 1988. Yes, Carthor, you didn't know.
Happy New Year, Carthor.
But the cool thing is I'm able to actually pull in the video as RGB sync. So it is super, super clean video. It's really nice. Here, we'll go full screen. I have to go over to this other computer and do this and do that. So it's beautiful. It just looks great. So awesome sauce.
Really good.
So yeah.
And by the way, I can't wait for season 2 of TNG.
Yeah, I know, right? Right. I should run like old ads on the side.
Gosh, I sure hope that doctor from the first season is still there.
Yeah, right.
Man, if they end the season with a clip show, I don't know what I'll do.
No.
DC Fontana's going to write most of the episodes? Yes.
Ron is full of all of the TNG references tonight.
Second gen TNG references. We'll be very specific on that.
Yeah. Next thing up on projects is the Diamond Trackstar. I know our wonderful friend and co-collaborator and investor in that project, Jonathan Adar, is going to want to know about that. Progress is being made. Basically, I'm in the making the PCB from schematic portion now. I've got most of the schematic designed up in KiCad so that I can redesign it using surface mount parts. That's where we are. So now I'm getting to layout. The biggest portion right now is I have to systematically go through every component and define its footprint, which means going out to the internet, finding the modern component that I want to use, and then setting that footprint in it so I can get it all shrunk down small and get it basically machine buildable. Also, as part of that process, as I'm doing that, I can then say, okay, how do we redesign this to maybe work a little bit better? And there's also chips on it that on the original design that are literally not made anymore. Like you're getting them surplus from random places to make the thing work. And if I want to be able to have these things reliably out there, I've got to replace certain things with other things. So that's kind of where we are. Also, the board has like 4 ROM chips on it. It's got a program ROM. It's got a, what's that thing called? A character ROM. It's got the disk ROM because it emulates a disk 2, a full disk 2 thing, and it's got some sort of. It's got a ROM that like does something with the RGB video timing or something like that. And so I have to like design around those and replace those because a lot of them are just like it's 256-bit 1-bit ROM chips. They're just the weirdest silly things. So I have to design it around what's available. So lots of detail. It takes a lot of time to do that because I'm not just spitting out a direct clone. Although I do plan on releasing the clone as a board only if you just want to build your own clone. I'm redesigning it, so there's a lot of extra work there. New stuff. We have a lot of new stuff coming up in Joe Land, specifically on the store. I want to start with my wonderful friend over here, Ron. All I will say is he and I discussed no fewer than 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 products.
Wow.
I'm looking over my
and there's
shoulder
2 more that we didn't.
Yeah, and there's more he's going to be sending. So Ron really does know what's important to the retro community, specifically the retro Mac community, or what is going to be important. He knows what people are going to want the moment he shows it to him. Is like, hey, did you see this thing? And so lots of ideas coming out of Ron Land. So that's really cool. I can't tell you about any of them yet.
Top secret.
Soon.
Some of them,
soon.
yeah. But I will say I can't take all the credit. A lot of this are brilliant people that contribute to the sort of the community, the free projects, things like that. A lot of the things that I make basically leverage those because not everybody likes to solder. Not everybody likes to, get on the hardware side. They'd like a turnkey kind of solution. So if I can work with Joe and we can make a turnkey solution for you that leverage these projects that have been released, then we'll do it.
Cool. And I just want to say hi to Dana in the chat.
Yes, hi Dana.
Hey Dana.
That's interesting. Google appears to have randomly deleted my account and reinstated it as something else when I logged in. It knows your content, Dana, and decided to replace it with fake content. Right? It's channeling you. It's fine.
And by the way, how is the bun doing?
Yes. How is the void? How is void bun? We must know how void bun is. Other things. Let's see. So we took care of Ron. I do also want to mention our wonderful friend 1-Bit Fever Dreams, Michael, has developed 3 super awesome things. 2 different MIDI switchers. One is a 2x2 and one is a 3x3. Bun is well and round and dark and abyssal. Yes.
Woohoo!
The MIDI switchers are super cool. Basically, it allows you to hook up multiple inputs to multiple outputs with switches. So you can connect, say you want to connect 2 different keyboards to do 2 different PCs to do, retro music making and all of that stuff. It allows you to do that without
MIDI keyboards.
Yeah, MIDI keyboards, whatever. Thank you.
Well, I mean, if people hook up their Model M's, they're going to be kind of disappointed.
Yeah. Or Javier.
I mean, those are already percussion instruments. They don't. Yeah.
But yeah, so it allows you to do that, and it's not just necessarily keyboards. It's like any MIDI instrument to any MIDI consuming device. It allows you to connect those and flip the switches, so you don't have to change the cables all around and stuff. So that's really cool. Also.
Yeah, actually, he sent me one of those. I would say that it's very nice and it's well engineered, and more than anything, MIDI switches are so expensive these days that it's really nice that this is something that can come in and fill a previously unoccupied place in the community. It's really good, and it's just very intuitive. You can kind of switch between your devices without having to unplug cables, go behind your desk, all that. So pretty nice.
Yeah. And the fact that you can, get it for $11.50 and not some weird multi-$100 random thing on eBay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No one tell Mark of the Unicorn. What are they? I don't know. This MOTU. First time I read it, I was like Masters of the Universe. No, they still make a lot of MIDI stuff, but gosh, it is so expensive. So it's really nice that something like this exists at that price point.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, he's coming out with what's called the PC Game Port Party. I will see if I can bring up a picture of it.
I have one here. I didn't. Yes. I was somewhere recently, and I didn't want to show it because I didn't know if he had officially got it out there yet. But
so it allows you to hook up to a game port. It allows you to hook up 2 joysticks and MIDI in and MIDI out, all in one big bump. So cool stuff. So that'll be in the store relatively soon. So that's coming as well. Here and now, I'll pop over to Ron, show everybody the thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ron, neat. What's that connector by your fingers that you're covering over?
There's a lot of connectors, but basically this end is like PC joystick or the PC joystick on a sound card. Okay. And then you have 2 of those on this end, one for player 1, player 2, and then you have MIDI in, MIDI out. So that way you can have basically this leverages all of those ports or all those pins on your card. So that way that you can hook it up and do a bunch of different fun things. So
doodle.
Yeah.
And that's the great thing about it. Again, it's similar to the MIDI switcher in that you plug it in and you just plug your stuff into it. And it allows you to do that without having to unplug. You can bring your cable up to the front and disconnect and move the cables around and do the things that you need to do without having to do the whole Cleveland steamer thing. That was probably not the right reference, but anyway, moving on.
No, maybe Eggs Danny Kaye style, but not Cleveland steamer. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I was going for a bad reference and decided to make it worse. Anyway, moving on. The 2GS Light Sound. So the 2GS Light Sound is the stereo sound card for the Apple II GS. That's now a JCM product. It was kind of designed and put together with Bob Darlington. I'm now taking over that project as an internal project for the Joe guy. I have some of those in stock that he finished the last batch and built. Once those are run through, then I will be producing those. So that is super duper cool. That's it. I am currently borrowing his insanely expensive DuPont crimper tool to finish crimping the cables. And then when that's done, he gets to have his crimper tool back because thank effing God. Yes. Now I don't have to. Yeah. The board itself isn't that bad. Because it's all surface mount stuff. A couple things are through hole, but it's like boop, and you just solder it. The pain in the butt are the cables. The cable that goes from the light sound to the header on the Apple II GS. There is not a pre-made cable out there that is the correct connected doodles. It doesn't exist. So you have to make them.
Nice.
Every one of them.
Nice.
Yay! Never again those cables. So I'm the light sounds sell well, but they are not like Blue Scuzzy selling 15 to 30 a week type of throughput. Yeah. So it may be okay for me to do that. I may end up farming it out. I don't know. I'll figure it out. So it's no big deal. 3 more things. I promise I'm done. Centronics 50 Blue Scuzzy is now in stock. So now there's multiple of us out there selling that. I sold my entire stock this weekend. So apparently there was demand that I never knew about. Apple II DVI, the A2 DVI. So you all know about my A2 VGA card. It's based on Mark Aiken's base design, which is then based on Vince Briel's design, shrunk down to be the most cost-effective version of that's out there. I was able to do my own design of that because it's VGA and it's not complicated. The A2DVI version, which is the digital version, I'm going to be reselling Raleigh Paleyev's design of that, his base A2DVI. There are several A2DVI designs out there. I'm going with Raleigh's design, basically because it's already done and complete, and I can just push it up, get it done, and make that. The A2DVI is now the new hotness. The VGA is still cool. I hope I'm not Osborning myself with having both in the store, but it is what it is. And I am able to say, technically speaking, that the A2DVI is compatible with certain high definition multimedia interface devices. And that is about the maximum that I am allowed to say. You could probably find some sort of special acronym for that phrase that will tell you what it's compatible with. And then finally, I received permission. I didn't really need to get permission because it's open source, but I received permission to build and do FujiNet. So I'm going to be working on getting FujiNet built and Metron.com.
Can you make it small?
Can I make it small? I'd have to redesign it. Maybe. It's already pretty compact because they're using the ESP32 module, and it's not much bigger than the ESP32 module. But maybe we can see the thing. Francois says, can't you order pre-crimped wires and just stuff them in the DuPont shell? Maybe. Bob has a very specific way that he did the design. And I might be able to redesign it around a different connector that's more available. Somebody somewhere will make them. Yeah. I can also, I have contacts in China that I can say, hey, I have a connector that has this design. Can you make me some? Can you make me 500 of them? And they can do it. They are the same company that makes my cables for PicoGus. I can be like, hey, are you able to make these cables? And I get a quote. And then if they can just do it, then just whatever. And again, AliExpress, again, Francois says as well, they have many pre-crimped wires with various lengths. If I can find one that has the correct header on at least the 2GS side, because that's the one that's
right,
I can't change, and I can get anything else on the other side, I can adapt the board to match that and be done with it. So yep, that's all that's going on in Jets.
Oh, and
I know it was a lot. So
okay, sorry.
No, I was done.
Oh, okay. Speaking of Francois, send me $3,000 through my coffee account, and then Joe can send me his 3D printer, because we tried to send a fucking laptop that cost an arm and a leg, and it's a laptop. So send me about $3,000.
It's a laptop
and that should
costs
cover the
like
UPS
maybe
charges.
120 resold, and it cost me $220 in customs fees to get it over the border.
Just rent a car, Trina, and go through the border. Oh, you don't know, right?
Passport. Well, I don't drive. I mean, you probably need a license to rent a car.
So that's what's going on.
But yeah, $3,000 in my coffee account, and I'll just say, Joe, ship it to me, and then I'll just pay the custom fees.
I used to write myself a note. Hold on, I'm doing something.
Alrighty.
You guys can finish the show. I'm doing something.
So Francois, it's not it was UPS that we were shipping the item between the US and Canada. So it was UPS that was gouging.
Oh yeah. I tried to send it via postal mail, and they just rejected it. It got to the border and they're like, no, we can't send this because it's a laptop with a battery in it.
3,000.
So then we send
3,000 Tim Horton points. Yeah. No. Yeah. And by the way, CDI, not talking to you anymore. Sorry, Jack 68K. He's my new guy. Oh, if you're gonna say Cara is my new favorite person, sorry, Trino. Sorry, CDI. Jack 68K is my new person.
Trina's got grudges. She
has. Yeah. Geez.
Golly.
Cool beans. Well, I think that wraps it up for our show this evening.
Love you, CDI.
Again, I want to thank Cara.
Cara's pretty great. If you don't follow her stuff online, you should.
Yeah.
Go find her. Her stuff is great. And I look forward to seeing a lot more from her in the future. Again, thank you everyone in the chat who stopped by, spent some time on their Sunday evening to hang out with us. And thanks to our wonderful hosts here. Let's run around and say, where can everybody find you? Trina, go.
Where can you find me? Trinastech.com. It has link-a-madoodles to everywhere, including, hint, hint, Francois, my coffee account.
Cool. Ron.
Hey everybody, it's Ron from Ron's Computer Videos. You can find me at ronscompvids.com.
Javier.
Hubmaster at YouTube, and of course, ABTs, and now ABT stuff. Oh yeah.
Good stuff. And last and certainly extremely least is this Swiss cheese after a shotgun blast pudding brain guy, Joe of Joe's Computer Museum. You can find me at jcm-1.com, where you can find links to all my social media and stuff, or you can just pick up a couple trinkets to keep your old computers running.
You should do that anyway.
Yeah, just go do it. Yeah, it's great. Okay, thanks everybody. Great show. Remember, 2 weeks from now, next show. Who is our guest?
Who is our guest? That would require me looking it up.
Yeah, clicking button, going back, scrolling.
Oh man, I'm not even on Discord.
I believe October 20th.
Can we just have Cara back again and just like part 2 of the stream?
I don't know. We'll give her a little time and have her back if she wants. Yeah. That'd be fun.
We do have Celgin Studios.
There we go. Yeah. Right. Because we're going to talk about the Apricot computers.
Oh, very cool.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So come back on the 20th for that show.
And we've got somebody. You want to even tease November?
Yeah. Who do we have? Ooh, we have Jeremy Parrish coming up soon.
Jeremy Parrish from Retronauts, which he has an amazing YouTube series that he's been doing for years, where it's basically an exhaustive review of the entire line. Like it's like every Game & Watch game. It's every game for the Famicom. It's every game for the NES, the SNES, the Genesis, and a bunch of super obscure consoles and stuff too. And it's more than just like I played the game and it was fun. It's like a deep dive history into like some of these companies. Like Casio had a game console that was out for like all of 10 minutes. But it's like a deep dive into the history of all of those. So
nice.
It's fun. He's a smart dude.
Absolutely. So gonna be fun to have these new guests, and I want to give a super thanks to Ron for putting a lot of these guests together, because again, I'm putting Noodle Brain, so sometimes I forget to do those things. So anyway, again, thank you all for stopping by tonight. Like, subscribe, do the thing, and we will see you all in 2 weeks. Bye, everybody.